Welcome to the Balancing Ambitions podcast. I'm your host, Kim Menapace. You are not alone in your pursuit to balance family life, work, side hustles, and taking care of yourself. Balance is not easy to achieve by any means, but we can all work to get better at it together by sharing our stories, tips, and wisdom. Let's dive into this week's episode. Welcome to this week's episode of the Balancing Ambitions podcast. I'm super excited for today's guest. This is someone I was introduced to through Stacy St. John, and this is actually a first for me where this is not someone I know directly personally. They're 1 degree separation from me, but such a kick-ass woman and very powerful story that I remember this personal story from 2 years ago when I heard it at a conference, and I knew I had to have MeiLani on this podcast. Back when I started this podcast a few months ago, she was one of the people I considered on this show. So without further ado, I'll dive into her bio and then let her introduce herself.
Okay.
MeiLani Hock is a mother of 5, author, keynote speaker, coach, award-winning real estate investor, and founder of Why Not Me Academy, which focuses on activating people to create the lives they want by living intentionally, especially through learning time management, goal setting, and positive habits. When MeiLani's 2-year-old son was diagnosed with brain cancer in 2014, it was the wake-up call she needed in life. She realized it was time to stop making excuses of all the reasons she couldn't do things and instead just jump and do instead of focusing on the why me situations. She chose to capitalize on the why not me attitude. She jumped into her lifelong dream of real estate investing and flipping houses. Since 2013, MeiLani has started multiple 6-figure businesses, but her real joy comes from helping activate women to live intentionally, to find more clarity, productivity, and joy in their everyday lives. Her passions include traveling, movie nights with her 5 kids, speaking on the topic of productivity and eliminating the chaos of a noisy, distracting world, and of course, coaching working moms on becoming the best version of themselves through living with intention to make more time for what matters most. MeiLani is based in Cary, North Carolina. Welcome, MeiLani.
Thank you, Kim. It's so great to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me. I just remember how authentic and present and how much joy you emitted when you present, both at the virtual conference, but also on your social media. I know you don't post a ton because you're so present with your not so little ones anymore, but joy is such a word that comes to mind. And I love that that was in your bio because that's what I think about when I think of you.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you, Kim. That means a lot to me. So I'm excited to officially meet you now.
Awesome. So there's a lot I'd love to cover. You know, you had an Airbnb business, you sold, you've done flips, you've done new builds and tear downs, and there's a lot to unpack there. But I'd love to turn it over to you and your personal and family story that got you motivated to really lean into this idea that you had from when you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I believe, a number of years ago, and from observing your parents and their work in real estate. So yeah, let's bring us back and then we'll come more closer to present day.
Kim, I love that you've done your research, or at least you remember from 2 years ago when you heard me speak. I actually haven't been speaking as much the last 6 to 8 months, so it's good to be back in the circuit again. And you sharing those stories, it's like, wow, she knows her stuff. For those of you who I haven't met, I was in a job that I hated. My husband liked his job, but I really didn't like my job. And I remember when we were first married and dating, we used to talk about all of our big dreams, and we were pregnant with baby number 4 and trying to decide what to do with our time, because my husband enjoyed his job, but I was so exhausted after work that I mean, like, bedtime stories, no, that, like, there was no way that was really going to happen. Bedtime, if I could get through bedtime without screaming and yelling and being a crazy person, then that was a successful night, right? And I was so drained by the end of each day that I was like, there's got to be something else. And it was about this time that I don't mean to offend anybody's faith, but and I hope you won't be offended with me sharing mine, but I started having these promptings that something was wrong with one of my sons. And I actually had baby number 4, and this was baby number 3, was almost 2 years old when I started having these promptings. And it was actually on his 2nd birthday that he was diagnosed with brain cancer. And I was sitting in these hospital rooms day after day, trying to figure out, like, what is going on with my life? Meaning, I've talked about for years how something's got to change. And then all of a sudden, this was the wake up call of, okay, something has to change, because whether he survived or didn't, I wanted to be confident that I did everything possible to live every minute to the fullest, right? To live every moment with intention. Now, let me just put a pause right there, because when I talk about living every moment to the fullest and living each moment with intention, those who know me like know that that sometimes means staying in bed until 10 a.m. so I can snuggle each of my 5 kids, right? And so I'm not going to be the kind of time management person to be like, go out there and just go, 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 like wake up at 4 a.m. and just, that sounds terrible, right? And everybody's intention is going to look different, right? My intention is going to look different from yours. And I'm not here to judge whatever your priorities are, but living with intention looks different for everybody. And so I want to help. Mostly I help women, but I do have a few men clients, but helping them live each moment with intention, that they can go to bed each night being like, that was a good day. Like, I got stuff done. I enjoyed things. Yeah, I pushed through some hard things. It's not going to eliminate the hard, right? But just to create that intentional life that you can lay down each night and be like, "Ah, I crushed it today. I did awesome. And it was a good day." And so when my son was sick and we were going to doctor's appointments and all the things, and I came to my husband, I said, all those goals we used to talk about when we were newlyweds and dating, like, crazy idea. What if we did one of them? What if we started flipping houses? What if we started doing this? And at the time, he really wanted to be a financial advisor, and we had talked about it, and then different job offers had taken him other directions. And he's like, well, I have faith in you. If you think you can do this, then I think you should. And so I started flipping homes. I started my first business, and I flipped 7 houses my first year, and I had 4 babies under 6 years old, I want to say. And but I was out there at that time. I didn't understand harmony, or what a lot of people call work-life balance. And I was just go, 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 going, going, going. If I were to therapy myself, it would be probably because I felt like I needed to have control of something. I didn't have control over my son's health. And so it was like, I'm going to put all of my control efforts into this business, and it started doing great. It started doing really well. My son's health started getting better, and the treatments worked, and things went really, really well for years, and I was winning awards and making lots of money and all the things. And then some things happened. We don't have to get super into those, but all of a sudden I was burnt out and millions of dollars in debt with flipping houses. And when I say millions of dollars in debt, it's because I got into 2 lawsuits with different general contractors. And all of a sudden, all those things that I thought would never happen to me, because I paid so much money in coaching and courses and all the things, I was like, that's not going to happen to me. None of that's going to happen to me. And all of a sudden, a lot of those bad things were happening to me. Don't get me wrong. We did have a bunch of homes behind that debt, but it was weighing on me very heavy, and I was burnt out. And I wanted to use all of the stuff I had learned to do something. And so then it was like at this time where this new sexy thing was coming out. And I was starting to hear about it, called Airbnb. And at the time I was in this lawsuit. So I had 5 properties that were leveraged, and I was paying private money on. And that was costing a lot more than I had planned on. So I didn't have great access to funds, or didn't want to pull my credit at that point because it wasn't as impressive as it used to be. And so I was like, how can I get creative? And so later there's a word for this, but at the time there really wasn't. I started renting properties and then subleasing them out. And if you're in the Airbnb space, you know that we call this arbitraging. And so I started about that back in 2018. And I remember actually looking up on Airbnb.com, like, and I live in the Raleigh-Durham area in North Carolina. And I was like, I think Airbnbs are just like for the beaches, right? Like that's what they are. And I remember looking on Airbnb.com in my area of Raleigh-Durham. And Raleigh-Durham, if you know, it's a decent population, right? And I remember there were 8 listings, and I remember thinking, oh, dang it, it's already too saturated. And of course it's not. Now there's like 800 pages in Raleigh-Durham area. So, but at the time I was just so new, but I was like, you know what? Even though there's 8 other in my 30-minute radius, I'm still gonna do it, right? And so I did it, and started doing Airbnbs and really, really loved that. Really, really loved that. In the background the whole time though was that passion that had come from those nights in hospital rooms, holding my baby, thinking, what am I doing with my life? Like professionally, I can go off on that, but I love that this podcast is actually about that harmony between your business life and what your actual life looks like. And in the background, my whole time through those years, I was geeking out on time management and living with intention and goal setting and all the things. And I started speaking a lot on that. And then I started writing a book and doing courses on all of that, that became more of my passion than what I thought was going to be my passion of real estate investing. But time management and coaching and all of that, I felt like that is where I needed to focus more of my time. And so I still had my Airbnb business and I had my team that was running it and everything, but I was very lowly involved in it anymore. And I used to go across the country speaking about how to open your first 5 Airbnbs, but that wasn't bringing me as much joy anymore. So as of January 1st, 2025, I actually sold that business. And so if you want to talk about how to sell your Airbnb business, let me know, or all that. So, but that happened. And then it was like I could focus. And so now I've started to really dive back into, it's always been there and I've had my smaller attention, but now it's like I get to fully focus on time management and work-life balance or harmony or whatever you want to call it. It's now been, 10 and a half years since that cancer diagnosis, and my son is doing awesome. In fact, one of the ways that I balance my life, or I kind of hate that word, so you can tell every time I say it, I give you another word, because I think balance makes, I remember I'm one of 6 kids, and I remember to me, a balance is like a teeter-totter. And I got so many times where one of my siblings would hop off the end and I would like go flinging through the sky. You know what I mean? And so when I picture balance, I'm like, oh gosh, either something's going to like go boom and the other thing's going to go woo, or I don't want to be the person that goes boom or the one that goes woo, right? And so I usually call it work-life harmony, because I think there needs to be low notes, there need to be high notes, but as they come together, there can really be some beauty that comes of that. So as part of my work-life harmony right now, I'm actually the choreographer of my kids' middle school musical. Yes, Toss Toss. And so they are doing Mean Girls Junior. And I actually have 2 kids in middle school. And it's such a great way to hang out with my kids, but like in an okay, kind of, I might even say cool way. But anyway, so my son AJ is doing amazing, and he has lines, and he's smart, and he's funny, and he's witty, and he's amazing on stage. And anyways, he's doing great. So that's a huge celebration that 11 years later almost 11 years later we can celebrate, because of his graduating class of the Ronald McDonald House that we stayed in. He is actually the only one of his graduating class that's still alive. And I don't take that lightly. And I have no idea why I'm so lucky that I get to kiss on my son's cheeks every single morning. I don't know. I can picture all of these other moms that we used to cry together, and I'm sure that they cry a lot still. I don't know why I'm the only one that still gets to hug and hold my little boy, my not so little boy anymore, I guess. But I do know that every time I see him, and every time I allow myself to think of what a miracle it is, that it is a challenge to me to live life to its fullest, right? To make the most out of it. Don't ever let myself go back to that dark place of just going through life like a hamster wheel, but instead look for ways to find joy and to be the best parent I can be, the best wife I can be, the best coach I can be, right? In our personal and our professional, to really magnify who we are. And so that's why Not Me was created, right? Why Not Me Academy is because a lot of people at the time were saying, do you just sit and think, why me? Why me? Why does this happen to our family? I could either say that about the time we were in millions of dollars in debt, or the cancer diagnosis. During the cancer diagnosis, honestly, Kim, again, this is my faith coming through, that I actually didn't ask why me, because I felt like God had control of it and it was in his hands, right? But I will say that during the lawsuits and the I won't say shutting down, because we kept that business open, but in my transition period from flipping homes to Airbnbs was probably the darkest time of my life, where I was incredibly depressed and trying to figure out, I had so many big goals and I was working my tail off. And I thought I had prayed about these decisions and they hadn't turned out that way. And so for some reason, I did find myself saying, why me? Like, why did I do this? Why did I make these dumb choices that put us in these things? Why didn't I know this general contractor was going to do yucky, whatever, right? And so anyways, so instead of sitting here thinking, why me, instead we say, why not me? Because why not me to be amazing? Why not me to take those hard things and turn them into good things? Why not me to go on that vacation that I've talked about for 20 years or 5 years? Why not me to become the mom that I see on Instagram and say, oh man, I wish I could be that person? Why not me to become that person one day at a time and slowly become the person that I want to be?
Oh man. So I'm gonna
Sorry,
take a
that was
second to
a
compose
lot, Kim. I
myself.
just like dumped it all.
I love that. Oh, there's so much to be said here. First, I want to acknowledge AJ. Obviously, I tear up every time I hear this story, and yeah, just get pins and needles on my arms. But something that I thought was so cute that I remember you said from a couple of years ago when I first saw you speak was that you're raising Spider-Man. That you were told he may not go to college, and he came home with testing in the 99th percentile in this the academic testing. And you said, I just have this amazing superhero in my home, and I just love that. And yeah, beating the odds. And you're right, you don't know why, and we all don't know whether we have a day or a decade or more than that left. I think that in my life, I know a close person I work with had lost a spouse at 37. I'm almost 37, and someone had lost a child that was exactly my daughter's age. And so you just don't know that stuff. So when you want to live intentionally and live big and come as close to those aspirational dreams as you can, you're going to have rough patches along the way too. And I think that you just embody that so beautifully. And I think sharing the vulnerable, tough sides of these things. I think we've had bad days in our business too. We've had not full blown lawsuits, but small claims court and stuff. And I think when you're going big and you're going with integrity and dignity and in good intentions like we are. That's one of our mottos in our business is assume good intent. Things are still going to go wrong. You can't ask yourself like within business, um, if something's going to happen. When you get bigger and bigger and bigger, it's just a matter of when. And are you equipped with your right lawyer and contracts and your ducks in a row and stuff to weather the storm with that same dignity, good intent, and no matter what other people throw at you. So I think that I loved that you went into that a little bit more in your book. I remember your first book, and I think that I love the vulnerable stories like that. I think we talk about the triumphs or how many doors I got in X number of time or how much I added to my net worth, but there can be really tough seasons, and I think that can happen to anyone, even if you're so diligent and hire the right coaches and check every dot every T and cross every T and dot every I, but that can still happen. And I think if you're going to live big, you're going to have the messy with it. If you want to live small, it's a little bit easier to control everything and be perfect with everything. But if you're going to live big and go quickly, that stuff's going to happen. And so I love that you're so open and honest about that side and just all the seasons that you've had in business and life. And they're right. There is harmony with these things and they all interplay with each other.
Yeah, I wish more people would have been authentic when I was in the learning space, right? Of just, yeah, there's going to be days that really suck. There's going to be months that really and I some people did, but it's like, yeah, but just get tougher. When things get tough, just get tougher. And I was like, no, I need to sit and mourn the loss of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, that might sound weird, but at the same time, like, no, I needed a time to mourn. When we went through that terrible time in 2017, I had to mourn the loss of, okay, you know, we sometimes treat our businesses as babies. Like it was obviously not a human. It was nothing compared to losing a child, but it was the loss of something I had poured my heart and soul into. And to see that happen, like it's a very real hurt. And I think more people should be talking about that. You know what I mean? So,
Amen. That's
yeah.
one of my biggest pet peeves about this stuff is I'm always been raw and honest and vulnerable about that stuff. And I get frustrated when I see these rose-colored glasses, things that go viral, and I'm like, oh, let's talk about the ugly side. Not because we're trying to scare people or anything, but I think
Yeah.
everyone wonders, what did I do wrong? Because I had this rough patch and it seems like everything is sunshine and rainbows for everyone else. And I
Yeah.
think that everyone has those rough patches, but they just don't shine a light on it because it might tarnish an image or something. And I just don't get it.
Yeah. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I stopped coaching on Airbnbs is I felt like there were a lot of like gurus out there being like, "Oh, look at me. I'm out. I just live in Hawaii and the Bahamas and all these things. It's so easy. You can do it. It's all so easy." And all of them were talking about how easy it is that I was like, I'm going to poke your eyes out because yes, you can create systems, but if you care about your business, then you're going to be worried about it, even if you're in the Bahamas, right? And I've enjoyed a lot of awesome times like that, right? But you're still worried about it all the time. And sometimes I say I'm a recovering entrepreneur because I love being an entrepreneur, but sometimes it's like it's really hard that you can't ever fully enjoy life as an entrepreneur because even if I'm not on my cell phone, even if I'm not like at an Airbnb, I'm still worrying about the people that work for me. Like you said, when you go big, there are people that are always depending on you for to feed their families, right? As the bigger you go, and that starts to happen. Anyways, so I'm kind of soapboxing now, but yeah, being a recovering entrepreneur is a real thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm still an entrepreneur, but I'm working through how to control myself and my mind so that I can be fully present for my kids, for my husband, for myself, instead of just always in my mind going, 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 going. I look at like, I don't know, like Mr. Beast. My kids are really into Mr. Beast on YouTube, right? And and he's been really honest about it, how he cannot stop thinking about it. He cannot, like, he's obsessed with it. And sometimes you know, depending on where you see like the Grant Cardones or all the people, there's a lot of people out there that it's like they eat, sleep, and breathe this, and they're teaching it to their kids all the time and all the time. And it's like, let your kids be kids. Like, yes, you should teach them how to invest, but let's also just laugh and just enjoy life. Anyways, I'm soapboxing. I'll stop, Kim. What else do you want to talk about?
Let's switch gears into dance. Actually, had a couple of different things I wanted to latch onto you, but I remember a post from a long time ago where you had posted you dancing on Dancing with the Stars stage on a cruise, I think, and you had said the message of it was that what if you had stopped when you had an incident when you were growing up, and now to hear that you're the choreographer of your kids' musical for middle school, I'd love to let's talk about that story a bit because
Oh
I
my
think of you and
goodness.
all the cute dance reels you do with your daughter, and I think that's such a lovely message as well. So let's go into that.
Kim, I love you. First off, I say these things out to the universe. Hello, podcast YouTube people out there, and you never know who's going to hear it and if it actually sinks in. And I don't know if you've just stalked me for the last 24 hours to remember all these things or what, but I am so impressed because that post was a long time ago. Yes, so I am one of six kids, and there's five girls and one boy, and all of my older siblings were cheerleaders and dancers, like that was their thing. And I came along and I love to play sports. I love to play basketball. I played golf and volleyball in high school. But in the back of my head, I still loved dance, but I was like a jock, right? And I know this is very High School Musical of me, right? But it was like, no, I sat at the jock table. I was not a dancer, right? And but in college, I took a couple ballroom dance classes and I was like, this is awesome. I really love this. Fast forward, I was on a cruise with all my siblings and stuff, and it was like sponsored by Dancing with the Stars. And so you could compete in Dancing with the Stars with the ship dance professionals and stuff. And it was so fun. And I remember one of my most embarrassing moments, not like haha embarrassing, but like, oh, sad for you moments, was trying out for the high school dance team because I was a jock and they all saw me as a jock. And I went in and I wasn't necessarily like properly trained in all ballet and all the things like they were, but I've always been I don't want to regret it. So I might as well try it kind of girl. And I did. And I cried so hard because the girls were like laughing in the corner and just like I felt like pointing and laughing. I don't know if they really were, but in my head, the story's gotten better 30 years later, whatever. And so, but I remember thinking like, yeah, I'm not good enough to dance. I should never dance. I shouldn't do that. But dance is a source of joy for me. And there's science behind how it proves, health stuff. And so just letting free, no matter if you've been properly trained or not, and just enjoying the moment. All of a sudden, it was like, you know what? That was in college. I realized I don't care if I'm not perfectly trained. I'm just going to love dance. And so, yes, Kim, you're right. I love dancing with my kids on Instagram. I did win the gold. It's not a mirror ball. It's like a paperweight, but still it is up in my living room. The kids love to look at that. And it was actually right around the cancer time when I did that. And I do often think, what if I would have stopped? Like, somebody said I was bad at this. Like, I should just not do it anymore, right? And it's funny, Kim, because as I'm sharing this, one of the keynote talks that I give is talks about the power of pivoting, of like, so there's times in our life that we get to a time and it's like, oh, no, like I'm not going to listen to that person and I'm just going to keep dancing. Is that my example there? But there are times where I've been flipping houses and this is miserable. And maybe this is God's way of telling me not push hard, but pivot into where he actually needs me to be. And it's really hard to figure out when you hit a roadblock, which one is that? Is it one that you have to Wreck-It Ralph and punch down to get through? Or is it one that you need to pivot and figure out where God actually needs you to be, right? But yeah, I do love to dance with my kids. If you're on Instagram, come and visit us. I'd love to connect with you. It's hard though, Kim, because my kids are becoming teenagers and they're busy and we don't get to dance as much, but it's so cute that my kids will still say, Mom, we have 20 minutes. Let's do a dance together, even if we don't post it. To be really honest, Kim, sorry, I'm going way off topic of this podcast, but one of the reasons why I stopped posting last year was because people were saying mean things about my kids and inappropriate things about my kids. And it's really hard because it brings so much joy to me and my family to do those. But it was to a point that it's like, I don't know what's worth it or not. But I had somebody recently say, kind of like you, I miss your posts. I miss you bringing joy to my life. And I kind of told them a little bit about what had happened. And they said, how sad that Satan is using that tool to stop all the good you were spreading in the world. And I talked about that with my kids and with my husband. And so, long story short, you'll probably see us a lot more. And we just have to figure out how to be safe for their mental health, but also for their physical health, and for creepers. And so we're just learning and growing. But yes, if you come to Instagram, you will see our past things and hopefully more in the future now.
Oh, I love that. And it's so hard to be vulnerable because you are going to have that bad in the world. You just we can't rid it. You can shut off comments, but that still doesn't, fully protect you. You can't fight tactics with just morally challenging things that are out there with, the good and bad that comes with the internet and the social media world and era. But I'm going back to like the joy and having dance be a barometer of health, of a variety of forms. Brene Brown talks about that too with her family. And she said you can tell the mental health and state of her family by how much dancing is going on in her kitchen. And I think about that with just myself personally. I no joke, every single day my kids say, "Mommy, stop dancing." Like just it's just whether it's the kitchen or bath or getting ready for bed or something. I like if I'm just trying to be silly because bedtime is hard, and we could talk about that in a second.
Yes.
It's just I laugh when I hear it because I know I haven't heard it in a few days, so maybe I've been off my game. But I just love that because it's that way for me too. I was trained in Irish step dancing, so far away from all
Yes,
of this stuff. But I
yes,
love all the other types of dance. So we'll see if my goal is to get to a Zumba class in the next couple of weeks because I haven't done that in years. I used to
yeah,
teach exercise classes, but that's the way the entryway I can think of into getting some sort of dance fun into my life in a more
yeah,
structured way. So I'll get
yes.
back to you if I actually get there in the next like week or
You
so.
should. You should. That's awesome. Irish step dancing. That's awesome. My nieces do it, and it's such a unique type of dance. But I love what you're saying about, and anybody who's listening to this, I dare you tomorrow morning when your kids are eating breakfast, whether you're usually in there or not. This just happened yesterday. Like I was in full on. I can't remember if I was still sweaty from workout or if I was wearing like my hair turban that I wear after I shower and like dry my hair, right? And but either way, I wasn't put together, we'll say, right? And my kids were in there, two of my kids were in there eating breakfast, and I came in and the music was playing, and I told Alexa to turn up the volume and play my jam. And I brought in a stool. I brought in a stool and I climbed up this stool and I grabbed this spatula from out of one of their hands and started rocking out. And their faces just were like, oh my gosh, she's so crazy. But like there's light in there. You know what I mean? And I looked and it was like one of those moments of, oh my gosh, my kids are going to remember this so strongly, but I've committed because I'm up on the stool. And so I'm here. But I hope like they started laughing. We all started laughing and be that person. Stop thinking, oh man, someday I'm going to be a fun mom. Be that person today, you know? And so bringing even if you're a terrible dancer, my the husband is not dance is not his love language, but he does it for us and he really enjoys it now, not necessarily because he's awesome at it, but because we all have a blast doing it together. So,
Mhm.
yes.
I love that. And to build on your, why not me? A question I've been asking myself is why not now?
Yeah.
My mentor in that group that I met Stacey St. John through, where they're pushing us to write bucket lists and 5-year visions and legacy scorecard. And I have things on there that I say, oh, next summer when the kids are older, it'll be easier to fly X, Y, Z places. And they'll ask me, why not now? Why are you putting a deadline of a year, 2, 5, 10 years? Why not now? And it's really making me think. And I love that challenge. So I like asking, why not now?
Yeah.
Along with that, I think it's a very powerful question to ask ourselves too.
Yes, but let me follow that up because there have been times that I've used that tagline of why not me and why not now? And sometimes there is a good answer, right?
Yes.
I'm not advocating for you to go like when we took our kids all out of school for 4 months and we did a cross country road trip, and it was because I thought it was going to happen 2 years from then, and I was planning and preparing, and then all of a sudden with like the timing of COVID and stuff, I was like, that's it, we're doing it now, and I'm so glad we did. However, there have been other times that it's like, oh, we want to go to Italy and do this and this. And it's like, why not me and why not now? Oh, it's because we also need to fix the brakes in the minivan, and we need to do this in the kitchen and this. And so it's okay. Sometimes when I used to hear when I was a newbie, right? And just soaking it all in, I'd be like, yes, honey, we are going on a trip because, this person said, why not me and why not now? But sometimes the answer is there is a good reason why not now. And it's because you're being responsible. And so don't feel like you need to go in crazy debt because the world is ending in 2 months, but look at it and be smart about it. Maybe get a financial advisor, call me. I'll happily have a 15-minute consult with you. And let's talk about what are you actually doing to live with intention, but also to be smart about your future finances and that sort of thing. Right. And so I do follow that because I agree. Why not me and why not now? But it's okay if it's okay. No, I really can't go take my family for 4 months to Europe for another 2 years or something like that. You know what I mean? So don't get caught up in drinking the Kool-Aid that you get ahead of yourself, you know?
Yeah. Do it in a smart way and also in a way that brings you peace of mind. I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it might check a box in another way, but then cause some chaos in another place.
Yeah.
So, all right, I want to talk about again on the parenting thread where you said you don't read bedtime stories to all five kids. And I love this. He said, you found that it was bringing out the bad side of you and you didn't like that. So you had to
Yeah.
adapt. And I think that's amazing and beautiful because you're honoring what works for you and not thinking about expectations or norms or fear of criticism of others and thinking what is best that brings out the best me to my kids because that's what's going to serve them best whether or not it's the textbook case of how we should parent and how we should be perfect all day every day and do X, Y, and Z. So yeah, I want to talk about that a bit more.
Yeah, so I'm kind of passionate about I tried the reading to my kids every night thing. First of all, when there's five, and even when there's one, right? Or two, they'll always be like, "Oh, you spent 3 more minutes with them. You spent this, you read 2 books with them." And it's like, well, they were very short compared to your chapter, but you know what I mean? And for years, it always ended feeling guilty and like, okay, they're mad at, but also I was so tired by the end of the night. Um, and I also needed my wind down time, I felt like, but I knew it was important. Um, to make time for each of my kids each day. So instead, I found that for me, waking them up in a gentle, snuggly manner works a lot better. Meaning that I go in and snuggle with each of my kids for 3 to 5 minutes every single morning when they're waking up. And we set a timer often. But it's like, I was waking my kids up of, come on, let's go. We got to get your shoes. You got to do this. And that was like, waking up to like an alarm, like, ah. And so instead, if we can make that, oh, good morning. And I sing different songs to them when I come in and I talk about how lucky I am to be their mom and all the things I love about them and how come it's going to be an amazing day. And look outside, you see that cloud and just setting the tone out with a grateful heart and a mindfulness, an intentional heart, right? Of this is the way I want to set my kids' tone for the day. Yes, is it important to we still have family prayers every single night. We still have my kids say their individual prayers and sometimes I come in with them, right? I still try to tuck the younger ones in. But I was forcing myself because I thought good moms read stories to their kids every night, and that was not working for me. So, like I said before, your intentionality is yours, and find out whatever works best for you. Because it might not be reading nighttime stories, but instead singing and snuggling in the morning.
And I think admitting that to yourself too. I think that I have only two, and it's so challenging. Even if there's two caregivers here, it's me and my husband, or me and my mom, because someone's traveling, and it's so hard with both of them want one person. So it's they both want me, even if my husband's there, or they both want my mom, and they don't care about me either. So
Yeah,
then trying to have one person split books, and they each want to be in their own room instead, and they're like, no, I want mommy and I want you in my room and I don't want my brother there. And so there's that
yeah,
challenge. Sometimes I've had fun with telling them a story. Like when mommy was little, I'll tell you about on Halloween, we one time got a bat in our house.
yeah,
And so I tell them that and they're like on the edge of their seats and, so engaged with the conversation. And so I'm like,
yeah,
wow, maybe it's storytelling. And I'm, not as, I need to brush up on those skills and have fun with
yeah,
it and that playfulness. And, there's so many things that it's sharing a story from your childhood, but also getting them engaged in a book-esque fashion, but in a way that keeps them engaged and not fighting with each other or biting for attention and stuff. So I'm still in that experimental phase of what works for us because it's even with
yes,
two, not even five, it feels like it can be challenging, and that patience is so worn thin by the end of the day. No matter even if you've had the best day ever, it's just again that wind down time, that me recoup time. You're right on the cusp of it, and you're like, I'm so close to being there. Let's just hold it together for a couple more minutes.
yes. And if your kids are still young or whatever, I really recommend writing down the funny things they do or the stories or taking a picture of their artwork and putting it in, even if it's just a Word doc, right? Because sometimes when I'm in that, okay, let's read a story phase, then we'll just open up their journal that I have for the kids, right? And be like, oh my goodness, look, this one's from when you were 2 years old. Listen to this funny story you did. And they love hearing these stories of really, or about one of their siblings or about me. And so I love that you do that also of family history stories, maybe something that their grandparents did or something like that. Just making it personal stories, not always, the princess and the king met and they lived happily ever after, but sharing the real life stories is also really fun during that special time.
That's a great tip. I like that a lot. Yeah, my kids enjoy seeing the photos of daycare and going back in the scrolling and seeing, and they tell me who their friends are and what have them
Yeah.
and stuff. But that'd be amazing to have all in one place, that kind of anecdote thread between the
Yeah.
photos that we have in our camera roll. I love that. All right.
Yeah.
I want to talk about you just recently sold your Airbnb business on January 1st. And so, yeah, walk me through that. How did that come about? Yeah, let's hear about that story.
Yeah, I had known that I wanted to go full time into my time management and living with intention, right? I wrote the book a few years ago and it has such traction that I wanted to dedicate more time to that. And to be honest, the Airbnb thing wasn't bringing me joy as much as it had in the past. Um it was still profitable, but I felt like each year for me in our area, my margins were getting smaller and smaller, and I didn't want to be on something, and it might turn around, like it might, and it's still making good money. But I like to build things that grow. And so I feel like it, for me, it was like, okay, am I going to stay with this or am I ready to exit this? I did keep a few of our rentals. For right now, we have turned them into furnished long-term rentals. But for the most case, I got rid of them and of the arbitrage and the co-hosting contracts. And so it was nice because I have written a book and I did have a course and had spoken across the country and stuff. And so I just went to my network of like students here and where I am and said, "Hey, I'm exiting this business. Is anybody interested in buying these?" And yeah, so it was nice not to have to move out the furniture and the leases that weren't quite finished. We figured out with each different landlord how to get out of those if they wanted to re-sign or what. But it is very, very doable. I had sold off in the past, like if there was an area I was no longer interested in, I had sold off my contracts to different people, but to do more of a bulk sell was exciting and fun to do and rewarding. And yeah, so not as hard as you might think it would be. Am I saying that you're 100% going to find a place? No, you're probably going to have to be in a networking group with Airbnb people or Facebook group or something. Like it's not an easy, oh, let me just announce on my Instagram that I'm selling my business and see who answers, right? No, you have to have a network where you know people that are actively doing this. And it had been in the back of my head for 6 to 8 months, and then it was just the right time and it worked out.
Well, awesome story there. I'm very happy ending for you. And I think that, yeah, everything has a time and place in our lives for these things and their seasons. And you're never gonna have these things forever. You know, there should be always an exit plan, unless you want to keep managing properties in your 90s or something. So
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, knowing that you can, yeah, there's people interested in buying these contracts, even if it's not full-blown business. You sound like you've sold off pieces, sections
Yeah.
of neighborhoods and stuff you were no longer servicing, but then even a larger package. And I know people underway doing this or having done that in the past. So it's definitely possible because you've
Yeah.
created value. You've done some of the sales and worked out the kinks with ops and built relationships, and all of those have value. And there's
Yeah. And if you think about it, like back when I was first starting, like it would take me one out of every 24 people I approached, I would actually convert into an Airbnb. So it is nice, like all of these properties that are now theirs that they don't have to take, it saved them a lot of time. So it really was, I feel like it was a win-win transaction for both of us. I got what I want. I could show them exactly how it's performed for the last few years. I mean, you'll have to have your books in a row and be able to show them this is what I've made, and hopefully you can, right? But yeah, totally worth it.
awesome. All right. Well, we're coming to wrap up now. So where can people find you?
Yeah. You can find me on on Airbnb. No, you can't find me there anymore. You can find me on Instagram, or you can find me at whynotmeacademy.com. So both of those are also our Instagram, MeiLani Hock, MeiLaniHock, or Why Not Me Academy. You'll start to see a lot more over there.
And can people find your books linked off of those places?
Yeah, yeah. Or on Amazon.
Yeah.
Yep. Or
Awesome.
if you are a listener, then you can also get it on Amazon for your Kindle.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I think you should be doing more public speaking right now because I so enjoyed this conversation. So thank you for joining me. And to all the listeners, have a beautiful day. As always, if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review because when you leave a review or share an episode, you make it easier for someone else to find us and benefit from these stories and tips we share. There is a link to everything we talked about in the show notes. Thank you all for listening to the Balancing Ambitions podcast and have a beautiful day.